Hey Tubi, so I thought I could do a quick video blog. I thought I'd tell you a quick story about sort of my experiences coming out of the broom closet, as it were. So this is, I was living in Leesburg, Georgia, and I was attending Lee County Middle School around, I believe it was 1998, 1999, somewhere around there. I don't remember if it was 7th or 8th grade, but either way, so I was in the library, and I was doing some research, and I found some books about witchcraft, and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of interesting. So I started reading and kind of getting interested in them, and I had found a friend who was interested as well, and we kind of started reading together and discussing things and talking about things and passing notes, and we had a notebook that we passed back and forth and just talk about things, like, okay, well, I read this, what do you think about this? And one of the teachers, Miss Elder, found it and turned it in to the principal. And I don't know if you know anything about Lee County, Georgia. It's the Deep South. It's the Bible Belt. If you're not Baptist, you're an evil satanic sinner and you're going to hell. So they called our parents and let our parents know. And of course my mother, being the conservative Mormon that she is, freaked out. And we had a disciplinary hearing. And so we went, and they accused us of reading satanic materials and doing satanic rituals, and I had written something in the notebook about, oh, well, this is interesting, you know, this idea of a high priestess, you know, we should find a girl who's interested as well, and maybe we could have a little circle or do something, and they said that was proof that we were practicing Satanism. I got suspended for that, and then while this whole thing was going on, my homeroom at the time was with Miss Neesmith, and she was also my English teacher. And apparently she said that I walked into a classroom, into her classroom, and as I walked through was doing a little dance and kicked her, and that it was part of a satanic ritual. How dumb does that sound? I can't even believe it to this day. Like, it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And you know, I wasn't a goody two-shoe. I had my problems. You know, I wasn't the perfect child, but who is? But who could believe that someone, I mean, I would never kick a teacher. The most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. They filed that in my file and told me that if there was one more complaint that I would be removed from the classroom because Miss Neesmith had requested it. After that, I was very upset with her. She treated me very poorly. And one day, I can't remember what it was, I had her for creative writing in English. And I was doodling, I think I was doodling pentacles and different witchy symbols. Just, I mean, I doodle, it's what I do. And she told me to stop and called it insubordinance, and I was just so upset at the time. I mean, you know, at that age, everything is a crisis. I was really upset, and I wrote a creative story about the valiant knight, Sir Matthew. Matthew's my first name, and the evil dragon Neesmith. And I wrote about them fighting and the, you know, the valiant Matthew coming out on top because he was telling the truth. I put that away. It was my own personal journal. I put that away and I went to lunch. Well, when I came back, the assistant principal was in the classroom waiting for me to come back, and I had another disciplinary hearing about the satanic symbols I was drawing and the fact that I had written a story about harming a teacher. After those two complaints, I was removed from her classroom and removed from her homeroom and removed from her English class, and I was told that I was never allowed to go back into her classroom because she thought I was satanic. And then my homeroom, I switched to Miss Elder's class. And when I did, they had a meeting and talked about how, you know, Miss Neesmith was going to try to save me. So my mother, of course, is freaking out because the school's making a big deal about it. She's making a big deal about it. She doesn't understand. She won't talk to me about what's going on. So she flips out, removes everything in the house that could possibly be satanic. She takes all the candles out of the house. She goes through all my stuff. You know, anything that could possibly be considered even remotely witchy, she removes. I'm not allowed to wear black clothing. That was another thing. I would go to Barnes & Noble and read, as I'm sure many of you did. I mean, now we have the internet, so of course, you know, we come here and watch videos if we're in the Broom Closet, but then we went to Barnes & Noble or the library and read in a dark corner kind of thing. So I did that for years. I acquired a tarot deck and a couple of other things and a book. I had bought Living the Wicca Life, I think. Yeah, I think that was the first book that I purchased, actually on recommendation from a friend. So I purchased that. Everything was fine for a while. Then my mother found those and she burned those. We moved to Florence, South Carolina. I met a very good friend of mine, even to this day. Met her, started talking to her, and she was actually pagan. They were family tradition. Her mother was a high priestess, very knowledgeable, just incredible thing. I started talking to her about it and started reading. You know, she would allow me to borrow some books from her library and stuff like that. And of course my mother found those and burned those. I still owe you books. She and her mother owned a barn and had several horses and stuff, and I was riding and teaching and competing and stuff like that with their horses and spending a lot of time there. And my mother had heard some kind of wind that they were pagan or weren't Christian or something, so she would always question me, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? And luckily I didn't have to completely lie. I would just say, oh, we're riding horses and talking, which is true. But we were riding horses and talking about paganism. And then I got a little, one of those mini, tiny travel tarot decks, and I had that on me for 6 months. I slept with it, I ate with it, it was in my pocket, it never left my side. Well, eventually my mother found that and burned that as well. Even to this day, you would not believe the things she says. I was talking to my mother the other day, well actually I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, about coming home for my sister's wedding. And she's worried that I'm going to steal the spotlight from my sister because I'm the gay son that hasn't been home in 4 years, that, you know, everyone's going to want to talk to, and I'm going to steal my sister's big day. And she asked me to remove my piercings and take off my pentacle. So I told her, I was like, okay, well, I can take the piercings off. That's no big deal. I don't mind. I don't care. Big whoop. Who cares? But I'm not taking off my pentacle. Unless it's on my altar, it's on my person. And she started asking me, oh, so are you still into that witch stuff? I think the exact words were, don't bring any of that witch stuff into my house. The stuff she says is so crazy, and I love her to death, but my goodness, she is just insane. It's true. You know, she asked me, oh, I love this. When I came home from school, my mother asked me if I was going to get off the plane all gay. No, you know, I'll leave my assless chaps at home. What does that mean? Because I'm like, my gosh, you know, I'm 23 years old. I'm an adult. You know, I'm not forcing my decision on you. You shouldn't, you know, it shouldn't bother you. So I just thought I'd do a quick story about my sort of story of coming out with paganism, and kind of the things that I've dealt with there. So for those of you who are younger and are dealing with parents and all of that, you guys are really lucky. I mean, the fact that a lot of you, that your parents will even listen and will even take the time to allow you to explain yourself, that's pretty lucky. And the fact that you have YouTube, you know, you have a community to go to. We didn't have that. You know, we had the library and the bookstore. And if you bumped into a pagan at the bookstore, you were lucky, you know. So, anyways, so that's just my little story about all of that. And what's yours? I think it'd be very interesting to kind of talk about how we came to find the path, and also our experience with other people coming out of the broom closet and dealing with that. So, post a video response. I think it'd be really cool to hear that. Bye.